We are going to go ahead and get started today. So I'm holding up the card for Mr. Jerome Hale. He is our certified orientation mobility specialist here at Viewfinder Low Vision. Jerome, thank you for coming to spend some time with us today to talk a little bit about what you do and give us an introduction to orientation and mobility services. This is going to be online on our Viewfinder YouTube page and on our website as part of our Low Vision library, where we're just constantly expanding the topics and things available to low vision patients so we can research online and find out more about the help and resources that are out there in the world for someone with vision loss. So to get us started, tell us a little bit about you and what makes an orientation mobility specialist.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the time to be here. So an orientation mobility specialist, or you'll see the letters, the COMS, Certified Orientation Mobility Specialist. So what that means is that basically I had to go through a substantial amount of training and education to be able to help people that are low vision or completely blind. And so what I do, what I like to call it, is I help people get from point A to point B effectively and efficiently using whatever residual vision they may have, any type of technology, any type of other senses, your hearing, your touch, maybe even your smell, not so much the taste, but to help you be effective and efficient and independent. So that's what an orientation mobility specialist does.
That's awesome. And so patients who would come to see you often have side vision loss or depth perception. They can come from a variety of different conditions. So I often refer patients to Jerome. And what I am often saying to patients is if you're uncomfortable walking independently, especially in an unfamiliar place, that's where we need to have you meet with Jerome or another orientation mobility specialist. In your opinion, what are, I think I should ask some of most common conditions you think you run into?
Well, as far as visual impairments or just in general?
Visual impairments.
Well, definitely retinitis pigmentosa. Mm-hmm. You have the glaucoma. Like myself, I have Stargard's. Mm-hmm. I've seen a large tick of stroke patients where the vision is lost. I've even seen, traumatic brain injuries or just accidents. It runs the gamut. Any type of vision loss.
And I think, you point out something really important, that it's both people with central vision losses like Stargard's disease, macular degeneration, but then, retinitis pigmentosa, glaucoma, those are side vision loss issues. Stroke can be any of the above, and it's a very different animal, someone who's grown up with a condition that maybe worsens over time to someone who wakes up or has an accident and the vision's gone. Absolutely. So why should somebody come and see you? Why should a patient see an orientation mobility specialist?
I think the biggest thing is you should be proactive instead of reactive. A lot of times I've seen people when it's a little too late. Well, it's never too late, but it's too late in terms of an injury. Like someone has already fallen, someone has already broken something, or someone has had way too many close calls, or they already had an accident. And now they're actually retroactively seeking the help. So I think being proactive, even if you feel like, hey, I can navigate things, I'm comfortable in my own home or in these settings. A lot of times what I hear is people will say, I'm very, very comfortable in my home, at my job, and at the mall.
Yeah.
And they think that's fine. But what I hear is I'm uncomfortable everywhere else.
Right.
And I'm kind of locked into those three places.
Yeah.
What type of life is just home, work, in the mall?
Right.
Right? You want to go peace. I want to go different places. I want to be whatever. I don't want to just be confined to three places.
No, absolutely. And there's a lot of people who have a support person and they feel, well, I just go everywhere with my wife or my son or my whoever it may be. But, in low vision rehab, we're always talking about that independence, being able to do something without having to have somebody nearby. Because whether or not it's a trouble for them, you may end up in a situation where you don't have that support.
Absolutely. If nothing else, you're married, I'm married. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just want to go on a walk without your wife. She's married, you're married, I'm here. Well, if I can only leave the house with her, I'm screwed. right? So you need that independence. Or if someone else get hurt or sick or anything, I mean, you need to have the skills to be able to be independent. You might not necessarily use them all the time, but it's just like that old saying: I'd rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Absolutely. Well, I think you brought up a great point that it's never too late. We do often get referred patients who are beyond what some low vision tools can offer, beyond what a magnifier will do, beyond what glasses may do. It's never too late to have the conversation, though. It's never too late to get new skills. And it's never too early, I think, as well, to try these things out. I'm often grateful when a patient comes in their very early stages of vision loss. Because, I often say we're at a stage where you have a choice.
Yes.
You can or cannot do it, and it's up to you when that applies.
Absolutely.
So, with orientation mobility, we're going to be learning about use of a long cane or a white cane. Tell me a little bit about canes.
Well, canes are a fabulous tool. I think it's probably the best low-tech, high-tech hybrid that you can have. What it does is it prevents you from tripping over things. It prevents you from bumping into things. It prevents you from stepping off curbs. It prevents a whole lot of stuff. But I think the biggest aspect, the biggest tool is that the identification piece. That's the thing that people don't realize the most. Like when I'm out and about and I'm walking around, I don't present as someone that has a visual impairment because I don't use a cane every day.
There's no way to look at you and know.
There's no way to know. But if I have my cane, then people are like, oh, there's someone that has an impairment. And oftentimes it's funny when I'm working with a husband and a wife, and let's just say I'm working with the wife and the husband will come to me and say, can you get me a cane? Because when we go out, everyone parks like the Red Sea. And I want that same energy for me. So it's the identification piece. And I think the best thing is that it prevents you from having to tell your story all the time.
Sure.
And that was one of the things that was troubling for me, especially as a man. I used to feel less than. So if I'm out at somewhere, let's just say I'm at the restaurant and I'm saying, hey, what's the soup of the day? And the guy will say, it's up there. Well, I didn't want to explain to him or her that, hey, I can't see it. But if I have my cane and I say, what's the soup of the day? They'll actually tell me. So now I don't have to keep saying, well, I have a visual impairment. Can you please read that for me? Yeah. Or when they're, now when you're going somewhere and they turn the iPad around and it's that screen and it's saying, you're just looking to hit next. But now it's asking you, do you want a tip? Do you want to donate this to this fund? It asks you like 17 different questions before you even actually sign your name. Well, someone like me, you can't see it, but if I have my cane, then you know, okay, I need to help this guy. Right. So it's just a big identification piece of nothing else.
No, I think that's absolutely true. One of the things we talk about a lot is places like airports where it's having the crowd part. I mean, what a big help that can be. And so for those who, may not need the walking part of it as well, but want the identification, there are smaller ID canes. And so I know in our low vision group, we talk about that quite a bit, making sure that, that advocacy is there. Because, if you go to the airport checkout counter and you say, hey, I need some help getting to my gate, then you have to tell your whole story and you have to walk through the whole thing. And, it's very good to organize some of that, do it ahead of time, but some cases where you can't do it. And, so I think those are really great points. There is, of course, the social stigma, the pushback of this, that I don't want to be identified as somebody who has a vision impairment, but you can't just fold it up, put it away.
Absolutely. And I think it's that fine line because in today's, of course, the cane is a great identification piece, but it's an identification piece for those who are out and about and aware. Yeah. Oftentimes, especially like when I'm going out to the mall and I'm working with someone, sometimes people just are so into themselves that they don't even really pay attention to you. Yeah. I mean, I've seen people down in their phones and they're almost walking to a pole, right? And so we're so concerned about people looking at me and how I'm going to present and this and that, when you'll find that a lot of times people are just so selfish, for lack of a better term. Sure. They're into themselves. Sure. So you're doing yourself a disservice by not walking around effectively and efficiently thinking about someone else when they're just concerned about their concerns. They're caring about their bad kids and they're paying their bills. They're not concerned about what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm running to the store to get butter because we need it for X, Y, and Z, last thing I'm thinking about is what someone else is doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's very fair. Well, okay, so we've talked a little bit about canes. We talked about what is orientation mobility. How many sessions of training do you think somebody has to go through to learn how to use a cane?
Well, I always tell people I'm working myself out of a job, right? So you should never work with me forever. But it definitely varies. I think one of the things that we do here is we have a pack, right? So we can get like a 6-pack, for lack of better terms. And I think that's a good where to start. And not to brag on myself, but I think I'm the best in business. Mm-hmm. So
that's why we have you here.
There you go. So I think I'm real effective and efficient, and working as a one-on-one, you get that intimate teaching. And I think it's all depending on how fast someone is willing to work, how motivated they are.
100%.
So it varies, but I would say at least starting out with 6 would be a great starting, and then we can move from there and tailor it to you.
About how long should someone expect each session to be?
I would say I never sit there with a stop clock, and I'm a talker, as you can see. So I would say an hour, hour and a half tops.
Okay, that's wonderful. And so, someone could go long, someone could go short. We see that, just in the exam room as well. Someone who's highly motivated, we might look at lots of different devices.
Absolutely.
Someone who's, particular, or maybe, the family is pushing it more than they are, might take a little longer to get through.
Yeah.
So are your services covered by medical insurance?
Unfortunately, at this point, no. It's one of those things that I really believe should be. But unfortunately, it isn't right now at this point.
So how would somebody go about getting access to your services then?
Well, it's a couple different ways. Definitely coming through here, then get a referral from you, and then we can talk about private pay. If you're in school age, then definitely your school district should be providing it. There is an extreme shortage of what I do. So sometimes some school districts, especially the smaller school districts, may go without having one. Mm-hmm. But the school should cover it. And then you have vocational rehab. Mm-hmm. Vocational rehab. If you're looking to obtain or maintain employment, then each state should have their vocational rehab, and they should be able to point you in the direction of working with someone like myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So you work here in Arizona with vocational rehabilitation?
Yes. So I work all over, all over the state. But yes, definitely with vocational rehab, also partnering with you, and just any type of way you can get in touch with me, it would be great. I tell people all the time that, hey, we're like unicorns, we're rare. And so if someone has a visual impairment, you're part of my family. So there's 2 groups of people I can't say no to. That's children and people that are blind or visually impaired. So get in touch with me. We'll figure out.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Hale works through us here at Viewfinder, and so you can call our main office. We showed the number at the start. I'm going to show it again here, 480-924-8755. We can help to get you scheduled. Do they come in here to the office to meet with you? How do you set that up?
We can do a bunch of different ways. I mean, if you want to meet here, we can do that. I actually prefer coming to you because that way, I find that people are most comfortable at their home. Mm-hmm. And so I want to make sure that you're comfortable, because if you're not comfortable with me, then, or any orientation mobility specialist, it's just going to make it difficult. I find that it's almost impossible to learn anything if you're uncomfortable. If you're hungry, if you sleep, you tired, you're in anxiety. Heck, if you just got to use the bathroom, if you're uncomfortable, it's very difficult. So I feel like most people are comfortable in their home, so I want to come there. And then also coming there kind of gives me an idea of what they're going through in their struggles, or maybe some struggles that they don't even see. Yeah. Just making some suggestions, because if you're most comfortable at your home, and if I can make you even more comfortable, that's a win-win for everyone.
Right. You have a little white dog on a little white carpet.
Yeah.
It may not be something to bring up. But that's a tripping hazard. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I'm asking these questions like I haven't been working with Jerome for a while, but this is really, I would expect, as someone new talking to him, these are all questions that, I think we would have. So, we talk about as well, going to their home, but also going to their church building.
Absolutely.
Going to their place of work, going to the grocery store that they go to. And, if it's a walk there, crossing that street, or going on the public transit, or, there's lots of, I can't say enough about orientation mobility. Yeah. I agree. It's a crime that this is not covered by Medicare, by other medical insurances.
I agree. There's even one scenario that was a unique scenario, but I think it's more people, if they thought about it, would take advantage of it. I work with a guy that's completely blind, and his church was having a convention at a hotel. And so the year prior, he had such a horrible experience. He felt like everyone was babying him, and his wife is blind as well. And so they were going to have the exact same conference the next year. And so he got in touch with me. He said, listen, I don't want to have what happened last year. So I've already gotten my hotel room. I want to go a week ahead of time, and you can help me. So we went to front desk. We developed a route from where he would get dropped off at Uber to the front desk to their room, to the pool, to the convention center. So then the following week, him and his wife went there. They felt completely safe. Yeah. And they felt comfortable. They didn't have to depend on people. And so I think just every type of scenario can be utilized, and some things that we just don't even think about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I would want to point out with this as well. I think one of the major benefits you get with Jerome, as opposed to anyone else in the business, that the fact that he has a vision impairment, absolutely, I think keys him into problems I think someone who's normally sighted, so to speak, may not expect, may not be aware of. And so, while we're also working on the white cane, if you have questions about accessibility on a phone, or if you have a device that's malfunctioning, or any of these other topics that, you might be good to talk to somebody else who has vision impairment about, I think right here we have a key resource and an expert in that. Well, so thanks for giving us some kind of an overview of O&M and why we should do it and the importance of this. I'd like to get into maybe showing a little bit to our audience the kinds of techniques or things we might do in an introductory session. I think the first question I would start out with is, how tall or how long should your cane be?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Because a lot of times I'll come to someone and they're new to low vision, and the first thing they'll say is, well, I have a cane, and someone bought it to me, or they found it in the garage sale, and it's either typically way too long or not short, too short. And so typically you want the cane to come to your sternum right here, or the easiest thing is just up under your arm. Yeah. Right. And the reason being is because the cane is a detection signal. So basically, when you have the cane out in front of you and you hit something, it lets you know that, hey, I have two steps. So basically right now I am hitting up against the desk right here. And so once I'm there, I know 1, 2, I'm right up on it. So but if it was too short, then you wouldn't have as much detection. Right. Or if it was way too long, then it would have way more detection, and you might not even realize that it's there, especially like with curves and drop-offs. So just right would be right up on the go. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I think it's also a good time to bring up, now I only remember a couple of them, but you've got 3 C's, is that right? Yes. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to be confident. Fill me in. Correct. Yeah, and the thought process is that it's like we're saying, be comfortable, like coming to your home. Because if you're uncomfortable, it's difficult for you to learn. And then once you're comfortable, then your shoulders drop, and then your confidence builds up, and you're like, hey, I can do this. And then now you're comfortable and you're confident, then of course you're going to do things correctly. But if you're uncomfortable, it's very difficult to do things correctly. And it's all about keeping safe, proactive instead of reactive. Absolutely. I really like that proactive part. I think I'm going to start using that with people. So we're going to step out to the hallway here, and then let's just kind of get an eye on techniques with orientation mobility. Yep. And so the first thing is just actually having that cane out in front, right? And one of the things is making sure that you have a proper arc. And so that's just having it out in front of you in the mid part of your body. That's called the midpoint. And you don't want to have it right up against your stomach, but maybe about 2 inches out in front. And then basically it's just having an arc with it. And so most people think that you need to sweep the cane way out there. That's one of the misconceptions of why people don't want to use it. But really, all you want to do is cover the widest part of your body, which is typically your shoulders. So 2 inches about that way, 2 inches that way. And that's the sweep. And that will let you know, that pretty much creates like a kind of a force field, for lack of a term, of what's around you. And that's covering. Now, one of the things people always ask, well, even with the cane, how do I know I'm going in a straight line if I don't have any vision? Well, one of the things is we can use the wall. And so that's a perfect way of using it. So we hold the cane like in a diagonal signal, a diagonal area, and then we can just push up against here and we can trail the wall. And so now I'm pushing this up against here, and now that's keeping me right in. Right? That's the trail. Now you're probably thinking, well, if I'm trailing that, then I'm not really having a good amount of coverage and sweeping back and forth, and you would be correct. I would only recommend using trailing in areas that you pretty much have some control over. Like I know here, there's not going to be a box in the middle of the aisle. I know at work or maybe at home that I have some control over. But otherwise, I would want to always sweep that cane back and forth. And we can still sweep the cane back and forth and use the wall, and it's called a shoreline. right? And we think of shoreline as like walking along the shore. You can walk along on a beach and you have water to the left and you can walk for miles.
Mhm.
So we use the same thing here. So now I'm just sweeping and then I would just be hitting up against the wall.
Mhm.
And so now I know, okay, hit the wall, I am going straight. Now, if I was to step over here, if I'm veering, I don't feel my wall, I know I need to get back over. So those are some of the techniques that we would use to keep yourself straight and on.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, do you have any closing remarks? Is there anything else that you would want to share with people who are interested in orientation mobility?
I would just say, definitely get in touch with us and don't worry about the social aspects. Let's be proactive instead of reactive. I would love to work with you. I wouldn't want to have a broken bone or
Yes.
a near fall to be the
Right.
reason why we're working. I would want to be able to prevent that. And I think also what's going to be key is that once we work together, you'll find that so many other people around you will come to you and say, hey, where'd you get that training? I
Yeah.
need that. I was kind of scared. Now I saw you doing it, and you'll actually be the light for somebody else.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your
Not a
time
problem.
today. Pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Take care.